Okay, we've started the recording. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yep.
this,
Okay.
awesome. So this is for week 6 discussion. I'll read the prompt, which just says, this week focus on defending ethics as a group, exploring how ethics shape leadership and how ethical behavior is reflected in public leadership. So the first thing I'll do is read, as you all are probably aware, Mikey got called into work, so he sent in his contributions beforehand so that they could be read aloud and discussed if necessary. And I'll go ahead and just read that first, and then I'll go. So his said, ethics is referred to in our text as the standards of moral conduct to judgments about whether human behavior is right or wrong. Leaders hold a significant amount of power and influence over their followers, so naturally the ethics of the leader plays a huge role in the organizational culture or the lives of the followers. The text uses Stalin and Hitler as examples of effects that poor ethics can play in framing the actions and mindsets of followers. Leaders are typically emulated, and followers will seek to look at them as an example. Whether or not it seems significant, leaders on any scale shape the way their followers act. So I agree with what he's saying in terms of both what he cited from the text and the examples that he gave in around leaders being emulated. So it does tend to set the bar wherever it's going to be and kind of get par going for the entire, expectations of the group. I've witnessed this in positions, corporate positions, where you see the leader of the group subscribe to some unethical behaviors and choices with regard to, an example that I've experienced is we had a leader at one company I was with who would just consistently whenever hiring vendors, would always hire their friends. So that kind of set the tone for the whole department, and then before too long, everyone was hiring their friends. Every job that got hired out, every vendor that was procured was always somebody that someone knew, which was a violation of the company's ethics standards. But again, because the boss had done it, there was nothing to stop anyone else from doing it as well. So it just became the norm until a third-party group stepped in and stopped it from happening. So that's a good example of how leaders are emulated, and that will pretty much be the example. You see it in politics as well. Things, if there's a general negative opinion of a specific political leader, you'll see that trickle down and will affect morals and even actions of the entire group. So that's, another good example of how it shapes leadership and is reflected in public leadership as well. So that's kind of my input on it and my experience with what I would call unethical situation that I was involved in at one point with a leader, and also Mikey's as well. So that gets the two of us out of the way, and if somebody else wants to go, that's fine.
I'll go. So every individual kind of deals with their own ethical decision making. I think assuming the role of leader naturally puts you in a position that increases the significance of those decisions. Kind of has to do with things the book mentions, like information, which a leader typically has like earlier and more in-depth access to, and then things like just general responsibility and power, privilege, and loyalty. And then from that role, those decisions regarding all that stuff impact just like a huge amount of people, as opposed to just yourself. So by maintaining things like more ethical standards, you open the door to potentially devastating effects. The larger access to information, the burden of whether or not to disclose certain things to their followers. So in many cases, like withholding information leads to negative results. And then the book gives examples of like the CEO of Yahoo having to resign after falsifying his resume, or Senator John Edwards, who was running for vice president and denying that he had a child with a campaign worker, and then later having to admit and apologize for it, and essentially running his campaign. my own experience with unethical behaviors kind of been like far and few in between, but I have had experience with leaders like stealing money and stuff like that. In those situations, so I mean, obviously that's wrong and that has negative effects, but then it sort of creates an environment where nobody really trusts the leadership after that. And so it just creates a negative atmosphere overall. Just to give another example from the book, in terms of things like privilege, those are typically accompanied with perks and benefits. And with this in mind, it's critical for a leader to control the extent to which they take advantage of added benefits. And then the good example of those from companies like Apple and Jack in the Box and American Express. I mean, and a ton more, and they just receive huge bonuses without any sort of performance-based valuations, and even others that use company money to buy extravagant gifts or throw parties and stuff like that. And these actions sort of, I mean, obviously showcase poor ethics. They kind of show a little care, just no care really for followers, and also sort of breed negativity within companies. And that's all I have.
Okay, I'll go ahead. So the book really had a lot about kind of a person with high ethics having a high moral character, which I think is pretty important when it comes to a leader, ensuring that they have a high moral character and kind of deeply rooted ethics in themselves, as well as are able to follow ethics of a company. My kind of experience with that is we had a manager who's no longer with us anymore, but he thought it was okay to kind of engage in drinking at work and kind of going out on lunch breaks and to drink, and then go out with clients and take them out to drink and kind of foot the bill for them, and kind of almost like a bribing kind of situation. So then working in government work like we do, that was obviously really sensitive because, we don't know if we're winning work based on us being the best firm, or if we're getting work from government officials because one of our leaders is working unethically, kind of buying people, which was a really serious kind of situation. So in replacing that leader, we did a lot of background in making sure that we replaced him with someone that had high moral character, someone that was able to kind of be the ideal type of leader. And as our book says, the ideal leader is going to differ in some degree and context depending on the situation and the company and so forth. But for us, the ideal leader was someone who really would follow our moral code of the company and make sure that they follow our code of conduct and not abuse their power or try to put us in any predicaments like the last leader did. And that's it for me.
Okay, I can go next if that's okay. So I just wanted to go back to what ethical behavior was defined as in our book, and it's basically the standards of moral judgment. And I believe that judgment, shapes leadership in many ways. One of the things that kind of stuck out to me was when the book, it kind of mentioned that a leader has an unusual degree of power to create the environmental conditions as either illuminating as heaven or as shadowy as hell. And to me, that holds powerful meaning, considering they used Hitler as an example of that shadowy hell. A current example of how ethics in public leadership shape followers is how, our current president, I'm not trying to offend anybody, by the way, he just kind of spoke on his plans on, building a wall and keeping, to keep immigration, to a low. And he also signed a travel ban to Muslim majority countries. And by doing so, that resulted in a lot of Americans targeting Muslims and Hispanics. There are many riots and many arrests just because the president's words, may have been twisted and exaggerated to the point where people thought that this was acceptable. And so I think that it's also important just to kind of mention how ethical behavior is, among like major companies. One of the things that I remember in one of my last classes, how individuals stole like the cola ingredients and tried to sell it to Pepsi, although they are, they're like, quote unquote bitter enemies. Pepsi immediately alerted the authorities, and things like that just kind of shape, ethical behavior as a whole, and not to basically as a whole, and not only to individual communities and organizations. And yeah, that's all I have.
All right, I think I'm the last one. I personally believe that effective leaders, those that attract and maintain followers and those that make the right things happen for people and organizations, have a strong foundation that is built on their understanding of ethics, morals, and values. Ethics and leadership are inseparable in my book, and the understanding and consistent practice of ethics is critical to personal and organizational success. I think that the morality of right and wrong should be on display at all times, and our behavior decisions and statements should reflect them. As for public leaders, I think they must make choices that challenge their code of ethics, and I almost think that those who serve the public should be held to a higher ethical standard than those in the private sector. Ethics provide accountability between the public and their leaders, and adhering to a code of conduct ensures that the public will receive what it needs in a fair and ethical manner. Public leaders adhere to the basic moral codes because they have more power than the average member of the society, and they also have more opportunity for violation of those morals. And that's all I have.
Awesome. Sorry, I was on mute there for a second. Can everybody hear me again?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, we got everybody's comments in and put us at 13 minutes, including Mikey. So I'm ready to submit it. I'll go ahead and end the recording now. And thanks. I guess we will all talk next week for the last time. So unless anybody has anything to add, I'll go ahead and end the call and the recording.
Actually, I wanted to add, I did see her comments for our last one that she wanted us to do a roll call. So
yeah,
just make sure.
I've got that on there. I pasted it in the other ones, but I don't know why for some reason last week I didn't paste the names. But I have them already in there for this week.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, got it done.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.